Welcome to a brand new episode of the Mega Talks podcast. This is the first podcast of 2022. After a year long of podcasting last year, decided I'd take a month off, come back, and I'm back with you for a brand new episode. This episode here is brought to you by Ultimate Expression. Over the last few months, I've been testing out a prototype gi. I've been testing out prototype gloves and some shin pads. And within the next few weeks or so, I'll be introducing those products. They'll be available for some pre-order specials. So make sure you keep it locked in on my social medias. Instagram, if you're on there, follow Ultimate Expression, and you will be given the heads up on the pre-orders. Also, with my personal Instagram and Facebook, I'll be giving some information on the pre-orders there and the evolution of the products. Some of those testings, I've done a few vlogs on them. If you go over to the Ultimate Expression on the YouTube channel, you'll see some of the tests that I've done on there and get like a little sneak peek and a little review of the products. So don't miss out on that. I also have a few other things coming up this year, and I'll be revealing those as time moves on and having more information about those things. Today, I'm going to get into UFC 271, the headliner Robert Whittacker versus Israel Adesayna. But first, I'm going to talk about the Super Bowl. It's Super Bowl 56 is wrapping up this season of the NFL. Now, it was a very enjoyable watching the playoffs this year. It was enjoyable to be able to sit down and watch the majority of the games throughout the playoffs. It was interesting to see whether the 49ers were going to pull off the victory and get a third match with the Cincinnati Bengals, but the 49ers couldn't pull it off. Cincinnati Bengals pulled it off and earned themselves a trip back to the Super Bowl. This will be their third trip to the Super Bowl. LA Rams, a little bit different story. You know, the actual team has been to the Super Bowl before, so they're no strangers from the Super Bowl. As opposed to the Cincinnati Bengals, when you get into their history of the Super Bowl, they lost their only two appearances, and it was back in 1981 when they lost to the 49ers, 26-21. 1988, they repeated their Super Bowl trip and lost again against the 49ers by the score of 20-16. Those were great Super Bowls, and they definitely earned the trip back this year. One of the interesting things about their team is, you know, they have a good quarterback to lead their team offensively. Where I feel that they kind of lack in their abilities to win is sometimes they're not as consistent, but when they do get consistent, it's more towards the end of the game when they come on stronger, when they rally together. Sometimes their starts aren't as well put together. LA Rams, on the other hand, they're pretty consistent, but they are a physical football team. From the games that I've seen them play throughout the playoffs, they are a physical football team. So I'm expecting it to be a physical game out there, and I'm looking for LA to take the victory. And that's just my, viewpoint right now. It may change. I may see something in there, when the game starts and just decide to jump ship and go to the Bengals. Who knows? Neither one is my team, but as usual each year, I'll pick a score and I'll pick a winner. You'll see me make some announcements or some posts about who I think is going to win and the scores. And, you guys are encouraged to follow along, pick your own scores, and we'll see who gets close. So I can't wait for Super Bowl 56 to come up. It's going to be good. It'll be this Sunday. And I know this podcast may be kind of, last minute to come on, but, that's why you tune into the podcast, is because you get the relevant information and it's up to date. But I'm going to move on into some UFC, talking about the UFC 271 and some things about just the UFC following. Now I'm going to jump straight into the main event. Like I said, Robert Whittaker versus Israel Adesanya. It's a championship fight at 185 pounds. Robert Whittaker comes in 6 foot tall. Adesanya is 6'4". Robert Whittaker's record is 24-5. He got the title in a fight against Yoel Romero. They fought twice. Whittaker beat him twice. First time he had a unanimous decision victory over Romero. Split decision over the second fight with Yoel Romero. I believe that was a rematch. I'm not quite sure how Whittaker became having the belt besides fighting Yoel. I can't remember the exact circumstances, whether the belt was vacated or just the whole situation there. So if you remember that, refresh my memory. But, Whittaker was coming off the Ultimate Fighter show, and there's a lot of talk behind him. I heard a lot of talk about his name. I think it's around 2016, 17, somewhere around there. Great fighter. UFC has a tendency to get behind specific fighters for some reasons and really build them up. And sometimes when you see them fight and there's a lot of hype behind them, you expect more. And I think he was one of those fighters where I expected a whole lot more. I'm not saying he's a bad fighter, but you get so much hype behind you and you expect to see flashy things, super knockouts and things like that. He's a well-rounded fighter. Last time him and Adesanya fought, didn't have a lot of success in taking Adesanya down. Recently, Adesanya's improved his takedown defense in some of his fights. He's getting taken down less and less and stuff in the takedowns. Adesanya is a rangy fighter. He likes to fight with people, a little bit outside his range. He, picks them apart out there and up close. In the clinch, a lot of elbows, good takedown defense, and keeping it on the feet and throwing elbows, knees, off the clinch. Just haven't seen a lot of his ground game, and I heard some people were talking about Whittaker, maybe able to take him down and maybe earn a submission. In any one of Whittaker's fights that I've seen him, he hasn't won by a submission. Maybe he has on the Ultimate Fighter show. I didn't watch that show. But maybe he has won some of his fights by submission. I just don't know about it because I didn't see it on his record. Now, Whittaker's wins, his last 3 wins that he put together was against Darren Till. We know the story on Darren Till. The victory after that was over Jared Cannonier. Cannonier's he's a stout fighter. I think he kind of gassed in that fight against Whittaker. But, he put it all out there on the line. Fight after that, Whittaker won. He beat Kevin Gastelum. Gastelum was another one of those guys. I can't remember if he was a tough competitor or not. But he was one of those guys that, UFC hyped him up a bunch. And when you watched him fight, it didn't seem like the hype was there. He's a good fighter. He's got heavy hands. Now, is he in comparison to Israel Adesanya in the striking department? I don't think so. Gastelum will, he'll stand in the pocket. Adesanya's in and out, much quicker on the feet. Gastelum not so much, but his heavy hands is what pays off in some of his little unorthodox striking, keeping his head off line and coming in with strikes. But with those 3 victories, he earns, his title fight back with Adesanya after he lost the first fight. We all know what happened there with the knockout that Adesanya got on him. And, Adesanya has a lot of counters. He has limited attacks from the outside range. I'm actually looking for Adesanya to win the fight. I think it'll kind of go as the same as the last time. I think it's a good chance they'll go to distance this time. Whittaker already admits, Adesanya is really hard for him to hit. I think Adesanya's only gotten quicker and he's gotten smarter. And I think just his mental awareness within the fight game is what helps him out the majority of the time. It's not I'm not going to say it's just a dominance in athletic abilities, but it's his ability to control things around him and limit his opponent's attacks by the way he moves and his counters. He just kind of leaves them standing in concrete sometimes. Now, one of the things that's interesting about this card is, on some of the recent UFC cards, I've taken a look at the cards, and a lot of the fights and the fighters that are on the cards, I really don't recognize their names. A lot of the fighters that I do recognize their names either have moved on to some other fight promotions or they no longer fight. They're retired or something. There's limited, I think there's limited star power right now in the UFC. And I think there's some that's been built up as stars, like Tuivasa. He's on the card fighting Derek Lewis, which I think that's going to be probably fight of the night. And I think that's going to, they're going to steal the show away from Whittacker and Adesayna in that fight. I don't see that fight going past 2 rounds, but I see it being a really, kind of back and forth at the beginning. If it's not end at the first, it's going to be pretty much at the beginning of the second round. I think they'll let it all hang out. No pun intended. But looking forward to seeing that one. Another one that's on the card is Derek Brunson versus Jared Cannonier. Cannonier's looking, to get that title shot. He's looking to get back in the contention. I believe Brunson is the same. I've heard he's talking about retiring in the next 2 fights. So, and Cannonier, he's a last-minute replacement. So we'll see how quick this fight goes. I think Cannonier's looking for an early finish. I'm not sure what his cardio's like or what condition he is and coming in. I know he's going to have to, go through a significant weight cut, get in there and, showcase his talents. And Derek Brunson, no slouch. Definitely not an easy fight. I'm familiar with those 2 names. All 6 of these names I'm familiar with. In case you didn't know, Andrei Arlovsky's fighting on this card. There's a lot of other fights on this card. There's Roxanne Modafferi's fighting on the card. The majority of the names after that is not really names that just comes to mind, when I talk about the UFC. And, that's something that's been coming along for a while is just, they're talking about fighter pay, the fighters making enough. And, you have Dana White on one end saying, they make enough money. You have some fighters saying they don't make enough money. But, they're pioneering, the sport, so to speak. So is there a consistency in the pay? There may be consistency in some places. Across the board, we really don't know because, like I said, they're pioneers in this area. So a lot of things are new. And, with all these other fight promotions coming about, you have bare knuckle fights. You have the Triller fights, with Jake Paul and putting on the boxing matches. And you have the UFC fighters wanting to go over to those cards and fight. We see Frank Mir fighting in some of the other promotions. I think Rampage Jackson fighting in other promotions. A lot of ex-UFC fighters going to these other promotions and fighting. Whether there's 1 or 2 that's popular, there's a whole slew of them that's out there, that are, they're gaining some ground in the industry. They're doing unique things and drawing a crowd. They may be drawing, new viewers or kind of casual fans of the sport that want to see, the entertainment. But one of the things they're doing is they're capturing part of the market. And some would say they don't really hurt UFC. UFC would say, those promotions don't really hurt them. They may not hurt them in people that are interested in the sport, but they may be hurting in a way as such as they're spreading the money out. And it's not just one organization that's just going to show their face, in the combat sports and just, take over. So we have various organizations that are doing different things that are taking the attention away. And we have fights or fighters such as Diego Sanchez. There's I can't remember the other guy's name, but Diego Sanchez has a fight coming up against with another ex-UFC fighter. Yeah, I think he got cut from the roster or he quit. I can't remember exactly how that went. But you see some of these, the UFC fighters moving to these other places, whether they're retired or moving on, and they're saying that the pay is better. I think even Chad Mendez is looking at maybe a bare knuckle fight or something like that. But some of these guys are saying, they're talking about the dollars that they're making. Whether it's true or not, you got to say that, are they going to hurt the UFC as a brand? I don't think so. Are they going to hurt the UFC in a monetary way? It's a good possibility. And like I said, not just one promotion, not just one combat sport promotion that's taking the attention away. It's several of them. And it's kind of a theory I had, is like when they come up with these things and they're challenging different organizations, and you have Paul challenging Wyatt to certain, I guess you say wagers and different things, and challenging them to do things and threaten them with his pocketbook. That is sort of a kind of a direct takeover, because what they're doing is just stealing the attention. And when you throw a lot of things, whether they're have integrity or not, once you throw a lot of things out there in the public and you grab the attention of a certain audience, you're going to capture that audience, and they're going to come over and they're going to see what you're about. And if they like it, who knows? The money that they draw can be in comparison. There's a lot of speculation on whether they have the money that they say they do or not. But one way or another, they exist. And whether the money exists really doesn't matter when you can grab the attention of more people and you can build a brand around that. And who's to say these other promotions don't come together and make a bigger promotion? And let's not forget about Khabib and his promotion. He's got one of his own and is working a lot of fighters the way he thinks they need to be worked. So it's an interesting time. You're going to see some things evolve. I think with some of the organizations, it's something that probably we thought was coming around for a long time, and I thought it'd be done before now. But I think it's becoming a little bit more relevant. I'm more of a fan of somebody bringing along an organization that's run a little bit more like Pride, with a large ring, and 10-minute first rounds where we get to see guys go in there and really fight. I think one championship is the closest thing that we have to that right now. So you can look at some of the numbers, you can look at some of the stats on some of these organizations, and some of them do rival with the, like NBA and NFL and those types of sports. So just go out there and look around. And if you're interested in the fight this Saturday, it is a pay-per-view fight. And if you hadn't followed, I'll inform you, the pay-per-view fights, I think, have moved to $74.99. And I remember a day where they were $49, and then they moved up to $59, and then the $64, and I think they're at $74. Will we see a pay-per-view jump up to $100 one day? The prices keep rising, but the roster of the fighters that are on there, a lot of them are still, not everyday household names, not like a Israel Adesayna, not even a Anderson Silva, not even a Chuck Liddell or Rich Franklin. Those names have to be built, and they have to be built in specific ways. So we'll see where this ends. If you have any opinions or comments or anything, shoot me a message or leave a comment on here. And I'm going to talk to you guys in the next episode. I have some good things coming up this year for the podcast and stick with me and enjoy. And I'll talk with you guys on the next episode of the Mega Talks podcast.